Hello everyone and welcome to another video. How is everyone? How was your weekend? Lately I've been focusing on grinding in the Rift, trying to reach Master. That's why I've been streaming most of my games instead of making videos like this. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a worse experience than I expected. If you're wondering, we managed to reach Diamond twice but got demoted, and now we're back to Emerald 2. The reason for this, as you'll see in this video, is that RIOT still hasn't fixed the matchmaking issue. This generally means that in most games, it's rare to be matched with players at the same skill level as you. For example, in this game, we managed to kill a Rengar in his jungle. This shouldn't have been possible because if that Rengar was even a decent player, he would have avoided facing me and given up his red buff. Most Rengar players, even with their egos, would know the matchup and wouldn't risk dying this early in the game. In this video, we have two games. One where we stomped the enemy beyond reason, and another where we were losing from the start. This demonstrates that even in the 14th season of League of Legends, RIOT still can't find a balance in matching players of the same skill level in each game. I believe RIOT is using this to their advantage. For example, in your first game of the day, RIOT might match you with players below your skill level, giving you the feeling that you're climbing and making progress. But right after that, you'll be matched with the worst possible team on the server. Why is this? I think it's because RIOT wants to test you. If you play well for 3 games, RIOT will intentionally put you with teammates who are well below your skill level to see if you can still carry the game. This happens in 2 scenarios. Either you're being punished by RIOT because you're playing well, or you're being punished because you were recently toxic or reported by other players. I believe the correct way to deal with toxicity is to mute the player. There's no need to hurt the game experience to teach someone a lesson. If a player is only speaking badly to their teammates, just remove their ability to chat, and the issue is solved. Another thing I believe should be removed is the practice of matching players with others who are worse just to make climbing easier. In the fear of facing elo boosters, scripters, and cheaters, if RIOT suspects someone of cheating, they should put them against others suspected of cheating. That would be fair matchmaking, not putting you with 4 disadvantaged players against an average team. You might as well be alone against a composition that's impossible to win against. Regarding this game, we tried going for the original Volibear build after the rework, which is Frozen Gauntlet into Sunfire Cape. The reason for this is that we were facing a highly mobile team with Quinn and Rengar. You could, of course, go for Trinity Force if you're feeling strong and ahead, and if you have enough gold for it. There's a 700 gold difference between the 2 items, and with that, you could buy boots instead. So, you have 2 options. Either go for Frozen Gauntlet into boots for more defense, or go for Trinity Force for more damage and mobility. It depends on how safe or aggressive you want to play. Now, you might think the matchmaking in this game was close, but to be honest, I didn't feel any pressure from their composition. Their jungler didn't try to go for any solo kills, and their Nautilus just stayed in lane, hugging misfortune. Meanwhile, we had some opportunities to roam and take control. There are certain red flags you can notice in games like this. For example, if your support isn't responding to calls or engages, they're probably either an NPC, non-player character, or someone who got autofilled and isn't comfortable in that role. If your top laner keeps dying no matter what's happening in the game, it's usually a sign they're struggling or mentally checked out. If your mid laner isn't pushing and roaming, it often means they're waiting for someone else to carry the game for them. Luckily for us, all these symptoms were on the enemy team, not ours. That's why I had the feeling we were going to win from the start. Sometimes things go wrong in the mid-game, and you can lose momentum before you have a chance to make a comeback. But in this game, the early invade we made put their jungler on the back foot. He became so passive that I felt like I could have adopted him by the end of the game. In the second game, we had a completely different experience compared to the first game. How can I put this? We experienced what I like to call duo versus solo queue diff. We played like we usually do, starting by clearing our bot side. Then I went for a gank bot lane, and as usual, we died. To my surprise, after my death, the bot lane kept fighting, which is your typical tilt moment that sets the tone for the rest of the game. The second issue we faced was a duo jungle mid synergy on the enemy team. You might be wondering, how can that impact the game from the start? Well, when you're in solo queue, you expect everyone to be playing independently. But in reality, the enemy bot lane is probably duo, and their jungle and mid are likely duo as well. In this game, the duo worked really well against us. What made matters worse was that I think our mid laner was actually a jungler who got autofilled. He forgot to switch his summoner spells, so the entire game turned into a terrible experience for us. As a jungler, you're more likely to lose if your teammates are passive. For example, in this game, our only hope was KHA'ZIX. He was doing decently, but our support wasn't reliable. Our top laner also spent the whole game trying to push and die, which didn't help. Another problem was our mid laner's damage. It was almost non-existent. He was just farming for free without contributing any pressure or damage. Even his wave clear was weaker than Galio's, which is shocking. Now, you might wonder, how can you even win a game like this? Is it possible? First, we need to identify our win conditions. I was hoping that Jax would split push to create some pressure, giving us time to catch up and build a lead through smart calls. But this player was completely brain AFK. He was just pushing waves and dying, contributing nothing. Our only real win condition was KHA'ZIX, who was doing decent damage to the right targets. Our mid laner, though, was still struggling, and our support was inconsistent, sometimes making great plays, other times making terrible ones. And me? As the jungler, I was basically feeding. I'd either lose my 1v1s or end up facing multiple enemies, usually their jungler and mid together. It was hard to make proper calls or build effectively against their comp. The only viable approach I saw was to go full tank, initiate fights, and act as a meat shield for our ADC. It didn't matter if I died, as long as our ADC could win and get some kills. In the end, the score doesn't matter as long as we're winning, or at least our ADC is winning. All you can do is hope for the best. This game demonstrates that it's okay to have a bad experience in League of Legends. The main issue might not be you, it could be your teammates. Or sometimes, you could be the main problem in the game. But how can you make a bad experience a fun one? In this game, I couldn't contribute properly. As a Volibear player, you enjoy the game when you engage, fight, and win. But in this game, I couldn't engage properly at all. I was up against champions like KHA'ZIX, who thrives in elusiveness, and Galio, who's there just to cockblock any form of engage. Then there's Melio, a champion designed solely to ruin the day for any frontline tank. How can someone just knock you back with a ball of fire? Who made this champion? We were slowly losing as the game progressed. To make things worse, I was chat restricted, so I couldn't communicate with my team except through pings. Then I had an idea. I'd only engage when I was sure the enemy team would lose something or we would gain something. We needed to push the game into the late game, where we had champions like Jax and KHA'ZIX, both strong in the late game. With the right conditions, we could turn the tide of the fight at any moment. For example, if we fought at the entrance of the jungle, under a tower, or even better, in our own base, we could control the fight better. This is especially important against mobile champions like KHA'ZIX and Lucian. So even though we were in shambles, scavenging for scraps in our jungle and losing almost every fight, there was still hope. No one pressed FF, and no one was flaming in chat. I think everyone on the team understood that the game was hard, either because of our composition or our lack of communication. And, let's be real, we weren't the best players or we just weren't having our best game. But the key is keeping your mind focused on the right goal. Even if you lose, as long as you're trying your best, there's nothing to fear. Now, if you die during an engage and someone starts flaming you, that won't change the outcome. Instead of flaming, it would be better if they proposed an alternative strategy to help the team. Flaming doesn't solve anything. Unfortunately, RIOT hasn't yet implemented a tool that distinguishes between constructive criticism and actual flaming. This is why there's no benefit to typing in chat. Every time you type, you're just opening yourself up to bad outcomes. You'll either get chat restricted or ranked banned for a few games until you lift the ban. There's a huge factor that's often underestimated in this game, and that's luck. By luck, I mean favorable events that happen to work in your favor. For example, in my case, my invades tend to succeed about 50% of the time. But that doesn't guarantee that the next invade will be successful. In this particular game, whenever KHA'ZIX invaded my jungle, he either took the camp or managed to kill me every single time over the course of 20 minutes. It just means that he was luckier than me. He also had good synergy with his ally, and maybe their communication helped him reach that stage. But overall, he was just having a better experience than I was. The same could be said for my allies. Whenever we tried to make an impactful play, the game just seemed to spit in our faces. The only positive thing happening was that I absorbed most of the deaths while KHA'ZIX took all the kills. Of course, this didn't seem like a threat to the enemy team at the time, But as you'll see, the key was focusing on taking out the right targets. Against KHA'ZIX, for instance, it's almost impossible to isolate and kill him when he's lurking in the jungle. There are some champions that you simply can't contest or start major objectives against while they're alive. So, if we could manage to kill KHA'ZIX even once during a crucial fight, we'd gain a major advantage. Now that we had entered the late game, we needed to be patient, very patient. At this stage, it was okay if I died as long as we could take down high-value enemy targets. With my trash build and bad score, the only player who absolutely could not die was our ADC. The same could be said for our top laner, who didn't contribute much for the entire 30 minutes. I don't know how or why, but any Jax player I face usually knows how to split well. This time though, our Jax just wasn't performing. In hindsight, it was probably a good thing that I was chat restricted, because if I wasn't, I might have made the game worse by telling others what they should do to improve. But now that we finally managed to kill KHA'ZIX, I thought maybe the luck would turn in our favor, at least once in the game. After all, luck isn't consistent. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called luck. Now that we had secured the Baron buff, not much had changed in terms of our overall position in the game. We had simply slowed the tempo of the game. The enemy team couldn't push further or make any big plays, giving us more time to farm, push, and wait for similar opportunities to turn the game around. When I say similar opportunities, I don't mean waiting for someone to disconnect. I mean catching an enemy in a weaker position and managing to kill them. If you're wondering who the main threats on the enemy team were, they had strong duos that got them this far. KHA'ZIX and Galio were a powerful combo. KHA'ZIX would engage with Galio, following up with tankiness and crowd control to keep him alive. On top of that, their Galio was building mostly ability power, giving them an extremely good damage in each fight. Unfortunately, we didn't have a direct answer to their combo. Our only hope was to stall long enough to force a mistake or have someone tanky enough to survive their engage, giving the rest of the team time to respond and turn the fight around. It seemed like a lot to ask for, but in reality, it was the only thing we could rely on. And look and behold, we managed to do exactly that at the right moment in the game. And with this, we won a bad game out of sheer luck and patience. Hope you have enjoyed this one and see you guys on the next video. Peace.